I think we left off. We got to 2:1, or almost 2:1. I want to back up for just a moment to the very end of, what is that, Act 1, Scene 2, where Ferdinand says, Prospero essentially puts him in prison and makes him do some day labor kind of work. And Ferdinand says, beginning around line 489, okay, I can deal with this. 494, might I but through my prison once a day behold this maid. All corners else of the earth let liberty make use of. Space enough have I in such a prison. There's an idea that he's just expressed that we saw also expressed somewhat similarly in Hamlet. Okay? Hamlet says when his two friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, come to visit, that this world is what to him? Flat, stale. He calls it a prison. And they say, oh, it's prison simply because you've got too great ambition. He goes, no, that's not it. And then they joke, oh, it's because, you don't have any women to take. What's Ferdinand getting at?
There's more than enough space.
More than enough space? Why? Because of Miranda. If he can see Miranda, what does it do to the drudgery of his daily life? It alleviates it. It blesses it. She makes everything that's bad worthwhile. Okay? Shakespeare's going to bring this idea up more and more throughout the rest of the play. So we get 2:1. So we leave Ferdinand, Miranda, Prospero, Caliban, and we go back to Alonso, who is King of Naples, Sebastian, his brother, Antonio, Prospero's brother, the usurping Duke of Milan, Gonzalo, who is the wise counselor, or as I put it in the quiz, the Neapolitan nobleman to Alonso, and then a few others, courtiers if you want, Adrian, Francisco, and others. And Gonzalo says, he opens the scene, beseech you, sir, be merry. Beseech you. He's left off the I. I beseech you, sir, be merry. Why? Why should Alonso be merry? I mean, what's just happened to him?
Lost his son at sea.
Lost his son at sea, shipwrecked at sea. They're on a, for all that they know, a deserted, uncharted island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Where were they coming back from when they were shipwrecked? Tunisia, Tunis, where his daughter married the king of Tunis. Gonzalo's going to go on and say, Tunis used to be Carthage, Dido and Aeneas, the whole 9 yards. So, be merry. If you put that in a modern context, that's like telling somebody who survived 9/11 at the Twin Towers the next day, telling them, cue the Bobby McFerrin song. Don't worry, be happy. What? How? You have cause, so have we all, of joy. Why? For our escape is much beyond our loss. That is, we've lost little. We got much in our escape. Our hint of woe is common. Line 3, our occasion of woe is common. Well, what did Gertrude and Claudius attempt to get Hamlet see in Act 1 when they come in that great scene, the flourish, the train and everything about the death of man? For Hamlet, to keep mourning over the death of his father. She says, why seems it so particular with thee? When, Claudius will point out after that, your father died. Guess what? His father died, and his father died, and they didn't pertain, or they didn't, continue in this unmanly grief for as long a period of time. Our hint of woe is common. Why? Because every day some sailor's wife, the masters of some merchant, in Shakespeare might have in mind, I wrote a play that involved something like this a while back. What was that called? Oh yeah, The Merchant of Venice, who has a merchant of Venice who puts all his money in a few ships, and they all go down. The masters of some merchant and the merchant have just our theme of woe. Why? He's saying every day some sailor's wife what? Finds out her husband's not coming back. Some masters of merchant ships find out their ships aren't coming back. Some merchant finds out the ships he bet everything on isn't coming back. But for the miracle, that is, except, here's where our lives are different than all these others. The miracle, our preservation. We survived this shipwreck. Few in millions can speak like us. Then wisely, good sir, weigh our sorrow with our comfort. And your gloss says weigh, balance. Okay, that could be what it means. It could also mean look at our sorrow in light of our comfort. Things aren't so bad. Well, he's going to say in just a few lines, how are things not so bad? Jump for a moment to line 64. Our garments, being as they were drenched in the sea, hold notwithstanding their freshness and glosses, being rather new dyed than stained with salt water. And because I think Shakespeare is playing a lot in this play with kind of varying with different perspectives of Christian theology. Okay? When he's talking about the clothes being new dyed rather than stained, I think there's an allusion there to baptismal garments. Baptismal garments, Shakespeare would have been well aware, are the garments that one puts on after baptism. If one is baptized as an adult, puts on what? A white garment. Okay? Book of Revelation talks about this. Paul in his epistles talks about this. Puts on the white garment. And yet, all too often, what do people tend to do after they're baptized? They sin again. Okay? The white baptismal garment represents the new Adam. Okay? Clean. Totally, perfectly clean. And then what do? They get those clothes all dirty, all, let's use the line from Hamlet, sullied. Okay? Oh, that this too sullied flesh would thaw, melt, resolve itself into a dew. That is, become purified again. So, new dyed, rather than stained, dirty, full of sin. Gonzalo is saying, it's like we've been born again. Baptismal imagery with the water, being dunked, coming back out. Okay? Now go back for a moment. Because after Gonzalo gives his opening speech, we hear Sebastian and Antonio go back and forth very, very quickly, punning on something Gonzalo has said. And then Sebastian says, line 20, $1. And you got a footnote. $1, where'd it go? Line 20. Widely circulated coin, the German thaler, or thaler, and the Spanish piece of 8. Sebastian puns on entertainer in the sense of paid performer or innkeeper. To Gonzalo, dolor suggests dolor, grief, like the Via Dolorosa, the way of grief, or Dolores Jane Umbridge, grief Umbridge, That's what her name means. So he says $1. Gonzalo hears that and says, dolor, grief, sorrow, sadness, comes to him indeed. You've spoken truer than you purposed. In other words, Gonzalo knows exactly what Sebastian means when he says dolor. He knows he means it in a way different than Gonzalo hears it. Okay? But Gonzalo is saying, I'm going to take what you've said and I'm going to transform the meaning of it. Okay? Sebastian, you have taken it wiselier than I meant you should. In other words, you've taken my word, my saying, and done what? You've pulled a deeper meaning out of it. Shakespeare might also, not positive, I have to do a bit more study of it, but he might also be playing on interpretive faculties in this play. Because how one interprets Scripture was also a very big issue in Shakespeare's day. You know, as in some circles it is today. Do you interpret it literally? Do you interpret it figuratively, metaphorically? Okay? So, they keep talking, Sebastian and Antonio just going back and forth, using stickomythia, which is this rapid fire kind of one sentence, sometimes one syllable, rat-a-tat-tat responses to each other. It's not as common here. Where you see this the best is in Much Ado About Nothing. Benedict and Beatrice. I mean, they're just going at each other with these one-line zingers. So, they keep going on. What is the point of their conversation? What are they saying about life on this desert isle? It's horrible. Okay? Gonzalo says, however, line 52, here is everything advantageous to life. What does he mean by advantageous?
Is it kind of like Duke's here in the forest? He's talking about
Kind of.
idealistic.
Might be the idealistic, but what is, if something gives you an advantage, what does it give you? Yeah, he's saying we have everything we need here for life. It is advantageous to. It will further life. It doesn't mean it will give us, this island will give us riches, okay, or will give us superfluities of life. It has food, it has water, it has air, okay. Antonio, true, save means to live. Well, your gloss says, except means to live. I don't think that's what Antonio's getting. I mean, yes, save does mean except. I think the part that needs glossing is means to live. Because for Antonio, that is what? Bear in mind, what is Antonio's quote-unquote job? Duke of Milan. He usurped his brother's position. So what kind of life, level of life, let's say, is he used to? Yeah, exactly. He's used to living in Trump Tower, so to speak. Where are they? They're in Harlem. Pretty big difference. Okay? So when he says, except means to live, I think he's suggesting, except all the things that really add to life. Okay? But what are the means to live? What do we need to live? Well, in Lear, which I know we didn't discuss, and I didn't post the lecture I said I was going to. It's not on the final, or it won't be on the final. In Lear, Lear begs his two eldest daughters, let me come to your houses, and I'll spend a month here and a month there, and I'll have 100 nights with me, K-N-I-G-H-T-S, with me, etc. And they start bargaining him down. And they finally get to, one of them says, what need you even 10 knights? And Lear says, reck not the need. If all you talk about is need, what is it man needs? Food, water, shelter. That's it. But he says, if you boil us down to that, we become what? No different than beasts. So he says it's the superfluities of life that make us kind of human. Well, that's before Lear's transformation. That's before Lear lives out in the storm and comes to realize, I should have done some things when I was king that I didn't do. Care for the poor, care for the homeless, etc. Okay? True save means to life. Sebastian, of that there's none. There's nothing here for the luxury or little. Gonzalo, how lush and lusty the grass looks. How green. Gonzalo's looking at the exact same thing they're looking at. And notice, they see total opposites. They see two different realities. How can that be? How could two people be looking at the exact same thing?
Chapter 3. Finally, my brethren,
What
rejoice
in the world?
to write the same thing.
It's fitting. Alexander Scourby, a famous Shakespearean actor. How can they see two totally different things? Gonzalo has a positive its worldview. That's it. Take a far left Antifa resistance, quote unquote, fighter, and take a far right Trump supporter, Trump can do nothing wrong, and have them look at the exact same thing, and what are they going to see? Total opposites. Okay? Why? Because they're each looking at it from a specific set of lenses, and they can't. They can, but they don't want to. They can't take those lenses off. Okay? Gonzalo is kind of looking at everything through the lens of what? Is it just positive? Is he a Pollyanna? A happy-go-lucky? Everything's good? No. He's, cue the Monty Python, looking on the bright side of life. Okay? If you've ever seen Spamalot, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's one of the funniest things ever done, next to Mel Brooks, of course. He's looking at it through that lens or eyes of thankfulness. Why? Could be worse. Could be dead. They're not dead. So, Antonio and Sebastian go back and forth, and Gonzalo says 61. The rarity of it, which is almost beyond credit. Credit, belief. Sebastian, as many vouched rarities are. What does Sebastian mean by that? Yeah, there are a lot of things people credit, that is, they believe, that are beyond belief. What's Sebastian mean? I think Sebastian is someone who would say miracles, as Gonzalo has said this is, miracles don't occur. Miracles cannot happen. There must be scientific explanation. Okay? Gonzalo's like, I don't need an explanation. That our garments, this is what Gonzalo was getting at before Sebastian interrupted him. The rarity, our garments being as they were, notice, being, not seeming as they were. They really were soaked in the sea. I don't know if you've ever been in the ocean fully clothed, but if you come out of the ocean fully clothed, Your garments aren't like they've just been through a quick spin cycle, you know. They don't come out clean like they've been washed. He says now, they look like they're brand new. In fact, they look new dyed, like they've been remade. Antonio, if but one of his pockets could speak, would it not say he lies? Antonio's saying, if he were to stick his hand in his pocket, it would be full of what? Sand and maybe bugs or, sea life, etc., etc. Go on a bit. They all keep going back and forth. And Gonzalo mentions Alonzo's daughter's marriage. And Alonzo, 108. You cram these words into mine ears against the stomach of my sense. Notice, the words come into my ears, but they are against what? His gut feeling. Gonzalo's trying to reach him through his intellect. His gut says no. Why? Because we wouldn't be here if what? Would I had never married my daughter there. For, coming thence, my son is lost, and in my rate she too, who is so far from Italy removed, I ne'er again shall see her. So what is Alonzo doing? What do people often do when really bad stuff happens? And it happens, they think, as a result of a decision they made. I wish I hadn't. What's the problem with I wish I hadn't? Hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, but you did. That's the problem. And unfortunately, we don't live in a world where J.K. Rowling can invent a time turner and we can just turn the time turner and go back and have everything be magically wonderful again. Francisco, he may live. He says, he trod the water. Doesn't mean, like Jesus, he was walking across the ocean. He tread, like treading water. He says, I saw him swim above the waves. He came alive to land. No, he's gone. How does Alonzo know that? He doesn't. He doesn't know it. It's his gut telling him that. The only problem is, sometimes our gut reactions are wrong. Why does he think that? Because he's putting all of his eggs in which basket? I wish I hadn't. This is Alonzo personally taking the blame for everything. What does he not yet know? Well, there's a Wizard of Oz back there, turning the levers and such. So what does Sebastian do to make Alonzo feel better? Look at lines 130 and following. You were kneeled to and importuned otherwise by all of us. Kneeled to. We got down on our knees and we begged you, don't marry Candace to the Lord of Tunis, he says. We have lost your son, I fear, forever. Milan and Naples have more widows in them of this business making than we bring men to comfort them. The fault's your own. Well, gee, thanks, bro. So why does Sebastian say that? He just wants to pile more guilt on. For what purpose, though? Is he trying to get Alonzo to die of a broken heart? Gonzalo says, the truth you speak doth lack some gentleness and time to speak it in. Notice Gonzalo doesn't say, you lying. You do speak truth. We did try to dissuade you from this. But there's a time to speak the truth, right? And there's a time to just shut up and not say anything. You rub the sore when you should bring the plaster. That is, You pour salt into the wound when you should apply a salve and make the wound go away. So Gonzalo goes on and says, you know, if we have to stay here and if I were king, kind of engaging in this fantasy, if I were God, what kind of world would he create here on this island? Little book written in 15... It's either 1517 or 1521. I think it's 21. Thomas More's Utopia. What does utopia mean? It's got two possible meanings.
Isn't it unattainable?
It's either no place or beautiful place. Samuel Butler, later, a couple hundred years later, wrote another book called Erewhon. Yeah, nowhere, backwards. Okay?
You wrote that one?
Samuel Butler wrote this one. Pretty sure it's Butler. So, what kind of world does Gonzalo say he would create? He says, I would be king of this commonwealth. Well, how can you have a king in commonwealth? King where everything is held in common. He says, there would be no riches, there'd be no poverty, there'd be use of service none, there'd be no contract, succession, etc., etc. Everybody would what? Everybody would hold everything in common. All things in common nature should produce without sweat or endeavor. Treason, felony, sword, pike, knife, gun, or need of any engine? Wouldn't need it. What is he talking about? What kind of place is he talking about? Is it literally nowhere?
Eden.
It's Eden. It's the golden wood of As You Like It, of Arden. Okay? Not the wood outside Athens in Midsummer Night's Dream. Because that's chaos. Okay? So, Sebastian and Antonio, again, they listen to him and they just start picking it apart. Gonzalo says, I would with such perfection govern, sir, to excel the golden age. He's talking about the classical Greek and Roman notion of the golden age before fallen humanity, etc. Okay? So, Alonso goes to sleep. Why? Because Ariel puts him to sleep. And Gonzalo, everybody else, except for Sebastian and Antonio. And what idea does Antonio put in Sebastian's mind? 205. What might worthy Sebastian? Oh, what? No, I can't go there. The occasion speaks thee, and my strong imagination sees a crown dropping upon thy head. What? Art thou waking? In other words, are you asleep? So, they keep talking, and Antonio finally gets a bit less opaque. Tell me, 245 or so, who's the next heir of Naples? Because they think what has happened to Ferdinand? Dead. Sebastian. That would be Claribel. Sorry, I said Candace. Claribel. Well, who's Claribel? Alonso's daughter, who's now the Queen of Tunis. Well, she can't be Queen of Naples and Queen of Tunis because they're separated by, several hundred miles. Antonio, line 261. Keep in Tunis, that is, let Claribel keep in Tunis, and let Sebastian awake. Let Sebastian rise. Oh, that you bore the mind that I do. What a sleep were this for your advancement. Do you understand me? He goes, I think I'm cottoning on to you. Because what does Antonio very shortly suggest they do? There's Alonso asleep. There's Gonzalo asleep. And Antonio says, you take your sword, you take care of your brother. I'll take my sword. I'll take care of Gonzalo. And what will the others do then when they come back and or wake up? He says, they'll follow whatever we say. Sebastian says, 298. Oh, one word first. That is, he has a question. And Ariel comes in and leans down to Gonzalo and sings in Gonzalo's ear. While you here do snoring lie, open-eyed conspiracy, his time doth take. If of life you keep a care, shake off slumber and beware. Awake, awake. Antonio, then let us both be sudden. And they move on them with swords drawn, and Gonzalo awakes. Now, good angels, preserve the king. Kind of like at the end of Hamlet when Horatio says about a flight of angels, send thee to your sleep or to your peace. Alonso wakes up, sees his brother with sword in hand. You know, and you can variously stage this because you can have Sebastian, like this, standing over him. He says, "Oh yeah, I heard of lions. I was protecting you." So Caliban comes in, Act 2, Scene 2. And what does Caliban do in this big, long, not real long, but in this opening soliloquy that he gets? Or what does he want to do? All the infections that the sun sucks up from bogs, fens, flats, on Prospero fall. He's cursing Prospero. And make him by inch meal a disease. His spirits hear me, and yet I needs must curse. When he says his spirits hear me, Caliban is saying, and I know they're going to take what I'm saying back to him, but I've got to let it out. They'll nor pinch, fright me with urchin shows, pitch me in the mire, nor lead me like a firebrand in the dark out of my way, unless he bid them. They won't do anything unless he commands them. But for every trifle ere they set upon me, sometimes like apes that mow and chatter at me, and after bite me, then like hedgehogs, I don't get that, which lie tumbling in my barefoot way and mount their pricks at my footfall, sometime am I all wound with adders, who with cloven tongues do hiss me into madness. Remember what Prospero earlier said about Caliban? Until I came, you didn't have speech. Got pretty good speech now. Okay? Caliban, here comes a spirit of his unto torment me. Well, who is it? Trinculo. Okay? And Trinculo has a fairly long speech. Talks about being in England now, etc., etc. And then comes in Stefano. And skip over to about line 116. Hold on, let me back up. Let's see here. Stefano speaks, and it angers Caliban. It bothers Caliban. He wants Stefano to be quiet. And Stefano holds out his bottle of liquor, or skin of liquor, and gives a drink to Caliban. And Caliban says, because he doesn't speak in... Caliban says, 116, these be fine things. Well, earlier when Stefano was talking, he just wanted him to shut up. These be fine things, and if they be not spirits. That's a brave God. And bears celestial liquor. He doesn't mean liquor like we mean liquor. Okay? Just means drink. I will kneel to him. So who's he going to kneel to? The very one that he was saying earlier, please shut up. He kneels to Stefano as to a god. Why? Because of the liquor. I'll swear upon that bottle to be thy true subject, for the liquor is not earthly, Caliban's got a buzz. Hast thou not dropped from heaven? This scene is paralleled in another scene. What is Caliban essentially saying? O brave new world that hath such men in it. He's like Miranda in Act 5. Okay? Well, why? What other men has he seen? Prospero. Not, to Caliban's perspective, not a good exemplar. Why? Because he beats him. He commands spirits to do things to him, etc., etc. So, Caliban swears fealty, says you'll be like a god. And at the end of Act 2, notice, so he swears fealty. He says, I'll serve you. You'll be like a god to me. Freedom, high day. Holiday. Freedom, high day, freedom, high day. What does he mean? Is this, Mel Gibson's Braveheart? Freedom! As he's getting his guts ripped out? How can this be freedom? Well, again, I think Shakespeare is playing upon kind of a scriptural idea. Being, quote unquote, slave to Christ is what? Paul says. True freedom. That's being truly free. Why? Because it's no longer enslaved to passions and such. Caliban, however, being fallen humanity, swears his fealty to an exemplar of fallen humanity. Stephano. What is Stephano within the play? What purpose does he serve? Comic relief, he's drunk all the time. Okay? And here's Caliban swearing to him, calling him a god. 3:1. Ferdinand comes in carrying a wog. Says, there be some sports are painful, their labor delight in them sets off. There be some sports, some entertainments that are painful, and their labor sets off delight in them. That is, the achieving of the sports is what brings delight. Before my knees got too messed up from coaching soccer, I ran marathons. I loved to run marathons. I loved more than an actual marathon. Going out on a 20 to 22 mile long run just clears the mind like, punching the gas on a V8. I mean, just clears everything out. Right? Can't do it anymore. Was it pleasurable? No, it wasn't pleasurable because I'd come home and walk like this, till I jump in an ice bath. That's what he's getting at. Boxing would be a pretty good example. I don't think any boxer likes getting punched. Why? Every punch is painful. And yet there is probably, in some weird, sick, twisted way, a delight that comes from that. Some kinds of baseness are nobly undergone. Baseness, low work. Flipping burgers at McDonald's are what? Nobly undergone. Again, I could be entirely wrong here, but St. Paul, whatever you do, do it as under Christ. If you're flipping burgers, President of the United States, and everything in between. In most poor matters, point to rich ends. I didn't look at these footnotes. Most poor matters, poorest matter. Really? It's useless. This my mean, again, useless. This my mean task would be as heavy to me as odious. Notice, this would be heavy, hard, and odious. I would rebel against it. But what? The mistress which I serve quickens what's dead and makes my labors pleasures. Except he does this for Miranda. Is he literally doing it for Miranda? Is he moving the logs because Miranda said, slave, move this log? Nope. He's doing it as unto Miranda. Oh, she is 10 times more gentle than her father's crag, and he's composed of harshness. He's kind of saying here, I don't do it for Prospero, even though Prospero is the one who's commanded him to do it. He does it for Miranda. Father, child, Father, God the Father, God the Son. Could be wrong, but I must remove some thousands of these logs and pile them up upon a sore injunction. My sweet mistress weeps when she sees me work. Says such baseness had never liked executor. I forget, but these sweet thoughts do even refresh my labors. Why are they sweet thoughts? Because he's thinking of her. And as long as he thinks of her, whatever I'm doing makes it worthwhile. So Miranda and Prospero come in. Notice, Miranda comes in, Prospero at a distance unseen. So she says, oh, you should stop here. Let me help you. He says, no, I wouldn't have you, do such base work, blah, 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 blah. They talk about her father some. She gives him her name, Miranda, and he puns on it. Admired Miranda. Indeed, the top of admiration. Okay. He says you are so perfect and so peerless are created of every creature's best. She goes, I've never seen another one of my sex, so I don't really know how I compare to other women, etc., etc. So, Ferdinand, 63. Hear my soul speak. The very instant that I saw you did my heart fly to your service. Why? Because he is in admiration of her. His heart has been stolen by her. I saw there resides to make me slave to it. For your sake am I this patient logman. Miranda, do you love me? She cuts to the chase. You love me? Oh, heaven and earth bear witness to this sound. Says, yes. Do love, prize, honor you? She weeps, says, I'm a fool to weep at what I am glad of. Kind of like the fool Feste says in Twelfth Night to the Countess, here you are weeping for your dead brother. Well, he must be in hell. How dare you say such a thing? He's in heaven. Then why are you weeping for him? Fair encounter, Prospero, of two most rare affections. Heaven's rain grace on that which breeds between them. Okay, what is that which breeds between them? Love. That which they will breed will be children. And I think he's implying that too. Okay? So, Ferdinand says, my mistress dearest, am I thus humble ever? What does he mean by mistress? He means female master of me. She takes mistress to mean wife? My husband, then? She asks him. I, with a heart as willing as bondage, heir of freedom. Here's my hand. They just did what? Common law marriage. They just did, essentially, a unceremonious, unrecognized by the justice of the peace, marriage. Shacking up? No. Okay. So, Prospero says, this is going well. 3-2. We get Stefano and Trinculo and Ariel and Caliban again. And notice, Ariel is there for what purpose? To stoke on Caliban. Ariel speaks in Trinculo's voice. Okay? So that Caliban gets upset. Because it's like Trinculo keeps second-guessing or naysaying Caliban. And Caliban keeps asking Stefano, will you make him shut up? Come on, you're a god. Stop him. So Stefano's like, tranquilo, cool it, So what's the whole purpose? Caliban wants them to go to Prospero's cave for what purpose? Line 59. I'll yield him thee asleep where thou mayst knock a nail into his head. Now, that is a biblical allusion. Does your glass tell? Why? Book of Judges. Deborah sneaks into, I think his name is Jael's tent. And does what? Puts a spike through his head. Through his temple to the ground. Okay? It's also in the apocryphal book of, actually there I think she chops his head off. Judith chops off Holofernes' head. So a little bit different there. So Caliban, lines 87 and following, says, here's what we need to do. We'll make our way to his cell. He takes a nap in the afternoon. There you may brain him, having first seized his books. Or with a log batter his skull, or punch him with the stake, or cut his weasand with thy knife. Notice, Caliban's thought this through. He's come up with a variety of ways to end Prospero. But first, take his books. Why? Yeah. Caliban wants to make sure Prospero can't do anything. Why? Might Shakespeare be saying man without books, education, knowledge, is Caliban? They all do hate him. Who's the they? The spirits that he controls. As rootedly as I. But burn his books! He has brave utensils, for so he calls them, etc., etc. And then they talk about the daughter in Caliban. Yes, so, yeah. She'll be worth your bed, etc. Okay. Then Ariel plays a tune on a tabor and pipe. And they're like, what is that? Caliban, be not afeard. The isle is full, 134 or so. The isle is full of noises, sounds, and sweet airs that give delight and hurt not. But notice Caliban never looks into the source of these sweet airs. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about mine ears. Twangling. That's like that in his ears. Maybe Shakespeare dealt with tinnitus, constant ringing in your ears. I've got an artery in my left part of my brain that's wrapped around the auditory nerve, has been since birth, that causes constant ringing. Okay? Not much I can do about it short of brain surgery, and I'm like, yeah, I'll deal with it. Twangling. Notice, sometimes sweet, sometimes twangling. And sometimes voices that, if I then had waked after long sleep, will make me sleep again. And then in dreaming, the clouds methought would open and show riches ready to drop down upon me. Is this intimations of immortality? Is this idea of grace? Well, we're going to hear Caliban talk about grace at the end of the play. That when I waked, I cried to dream again. This is C.S. Lewis's being surprised by joy, this sense that there's something more to life and not being able to find it. What is this telling us about Caliban? Is he a mere beast? No, he's not. Is he totally depraved? No, he's not. Okay? You could say about Caliban, he can be taught. He can become better. Okay? So, Going to 3:3. Ariel comes in to where Francisco, Sebastian, Alonso, Gonzalo, Antonio, etc. all are. Prospero's there. He hears Gonzalo. Okay. And Ariel speaks. There's thunder and lightning. Ariel comes in like a harpy. You are 3 men of sin, whom destiny that hath to instrument this lower world. Destiny that hath to instrument this lower world. The other day when I was talking about Boethius, and I had, God or providence way up at the top, fate, fortune. Fate. That's what destiny is. All right? Hath caused to belch up you, and on this island where man doth not inhabit, you amongst men being most unfit to live, I've made you mad, and even with such like valor, men hang and drown their proper selves. They hear this, they see this, and they pull out their swords. He's like, come on. We're ministers of fate. You can't touch us. My fellow ministers are alike invulnerable. Why is Ariel doing this? Because Ariel is now going to remind them. Remember the Duke of Milan. You 3 from Milan did supplant good Prospero, exposed unto the sea which hath requited him and his innocent child. Who's Ariel specifically talking to? Alonso? Antonio? Sebastian? Or Gonzalo? It's Sebastian. Why? Because Gonzalo did everything he could to alleviate Prospero's exile. So, you are here for what purpose? For which foul deed the powers delaying, not forgetting, have incensed the seas and shores, yea, all the creatures, against your peace. You are getting your comeuppance. This is reaping what you sow. Prospero, 88. My high charms work, and these mine enemies are all knit up in their distractions. Hamlet says, oh, that this too distracted globe. Okay? Alonso, Sebastian, and Antonio are now wandering in their mind. Their minds now lack focus. They are now in my power, and in these fits I leave them. In other words, I'm going to let them suffer like this for a while. Okay? Gonzalo. All 3 of them are desperate. Their great guilt, like poison given to work a great time after, now begins to bite the spirits. What are they doing, according to Gonzalo? Their eyes are no longer focused outward. Their eyes are turning inward. They're seeing themselves. They're seeing their guilt. I do beseech you that are of suppler joints. He's talking to the spirits. Follow them swiftly and hinder them from what this ecstasy may now provoke them to. Because desperate men will do desperate deeds. And if they are overcome, if they are racked with guilt, what desperate deed might they do? Suicide. So, he prays the spirits protect them. 4:1. Prospero, Ferdinand, Miranda come in. And Prospero says to Ferdinand, if I've overtasked you with this job of moving logs, your compensation makes amends. That is, you're doing the job so well, takes care of that. So he says, here before heaven, I ratify this my rich gift. And he kind of gives Miranda's hand to Ferdinand. You too may marry. Do not smile at me that I boast her off, for thou shalt find she will outstrip all plays and make it halt behind easel. But Prospero then advises him what? I don't know if you saw it. There was a picture the other day on Twitter. Went viral very, very fast. A father probably younger than I am, with his daughter and her prom date. Father's standing here, daughter's standing here, she's 17, 18, prom date standing here in his tux. Father's standing here and he's got like a Glock in his hand. Got his finger not on the trigger, and it just, the thing was, wishing my daughter and her date a happy and safe prom. And the left went utter berserk, like this guy was threatening violence against, the prom date, etc. And the right were saying, don't any of you have daughters? Haven't any of you ever joked, date comes over, you're going to sit out on the front porch with a shotgun, cleaning it, just, to have a nice little chat, this is my daughter, don't. Not, she's my property, but be nice to her. This is Prospero. This is my daughter. I love her. Be nice to her. What does he say? If thou dost break her virgin not before, all sanctimonious ceremonies may with full and holy rite be ministered. In other words, yeah, I've told you you can marry my daughter. You two have kind of privately on the slide done your little civil common law ceremony, but don't sleep together until sanctimonious and holy rites are done. Why? Because if you do, here's my father's blessing. Shakespeare's really good with curses, by the way. No sweet aspersion shall the heavens let fall to make this contract grow. Sweet aspersion, sprinkling. Okay? But barren hate, sour-eyed disdain, and discord shall bestrew the union of your bed with weeds, so lowly you shall hate it both. Therefore, take heed. Ferdinand, whoa, back off. As I hope for quiet days, in other words, I don't want to have to tame the shrew. I'm hoping for quiet days. I don't want her to become a shrew. Fair issue, beautiful children, and long life, with such love as 'tis now, the murkiest den, that is the darkest place, the most opportune place, away from everybody else, the strong suggestion, our worser genius. What does he mean by our worser genius?
Base desires.
Close. How many of you have ever watched Bugs Bunny cartoons? What often happens in a Bugs Bunny cartoon when Bugs or somebody else is tempted? What do we visually see?
Angel shoulder and devil shoulder.
Angel shoulder and devil shoulder. Angel shoulder over here, why it's the right side. Devil shoulder over here, why it's the sinister side. Our worser genius is the evil attending spirit. So he says, the murkiest den, the most opportune place, the strongest suggestion of our worser genius shall never melt mine honor into lust. Murkiest den, dark bar, opportune place where nobody's around. I'm not going to rape your daughter, is essentially what he's saying. To take away the edge of that day's celebration. I won't jump the gun, so to speak. Why? Because he says, if I do, it will do what? It will lessen the glory of that day, the wedding day. Prosper's like, all right, I like this kid, Fairly spoke. Well done. So Ariel comes in. Prospero talks to Ariel, so there are things going on. A couple other spirits come in, which we're going to skip. And Ferdinand says, after Prospero says, these spirits are all under my art. Ferdinand, 122, let me live here ever. Why? So rare a wondered father and a wise makes this place paradise. Man, I would just love to live because, I mean, with you in charge, we'll never suffer. Okay? So, reapers are brought in and such. Let's see here. Now I'm going to skip that. Prospero 188. Ariel leaves. And Prospero's talking about Caliban, a devil, a born devil, on whose nature nurture can never stick. We think nature and nurture is a modern idea. Shakespeare wrestles with it in a lot of his plays. Nature, what you're born with, nurture, what you can be taught, what you can learn. Notice what he's saying. With Caliban so far, nurture isn't sticking well. Yet Caliban does still speak, and he speaks well. On whom my pains humanely taken, all lost, quite lost. Why does he say his pains are all lost, quite lost? What's Caliban essentially done? Sworn allegiance to Stefano. I thought I saw Amelia just peek at the door. And as with age his body uglier grows, so his mind cankers. That is, his mind gets worse and worse. Okay? 5. Act 5. In 15 minutes. Prospero comes in. Magic robes. Yeah, every time I read that, I think Mickey Mouse and Fantasia and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. He comes in, magic robes and everything. And he says, now does my project gather to a head. In other words, almost complete. He asked Ariel, what time is it? On the 6th hour. It's the 6th hour of the day. At which time, my lord, you said our work should cease. Why the 6th hour should their work cease? I don't know that Shakespeare means a biblical allusion here, but when you have 6th hour kind of language, could be. Okay? So when Christ said, it is finished. It is completed. The purpose is done. Ariel, you said on the 6th hour, our purpose would be done. Okay? So, Ariel says, line 16, your charm so strongly works him that if you now beheld him, your affections would become tender. If you saw Alonso, Sebastian, Antonio, what? You would show mercy to them. You think so? If I were a human, mine would. 21. Hast thou, which art but air, a touch, a feeling of their afflictions, and shall not myself, one of their kind, that is humanity, that relish all as sharply passion as they, be kindlier moved than thou art? If you are moved to kindness, how much more should I be? Though with their high wrongs I am struck to the quick. High wrongs against me. Their wrongs were struck to his quick, meaning against his life. When they set him at sea in the boat, did they intend for him to live? No, they didn't. Yet with my nobler reason against my fury do I take part. Where is fury born? Passion. Reason is nobler. It pushes down the passions. That's why Hamlet says, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer, outrageous fortune, etc., etc. The rarer action is in virtue than vengeance. Vengeance is common, right? People seek vengeance all the time. Somebody cuts you off on the road, what do? You speed up past them and you give them the single finger salute. That's vengeance. Or if you're really crazy, you pull out a gun and shoot them for cutting you off on the road. It's a little overkill, pun intended. Virtue, however, is rarer. What does he mean by virtue? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Go release them, Ariel. My charms I'll break, their senses I'll restore, and they shall be themselves. So, he traces a circle with his staff. He stands in the middle of it, and he says, and I'm not going to read all the speech, beginning line 33, he's going to release all the spirits. Line 40, I'm going to pick up 48. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oaked, and let them forth by my so potent art. He's raised the dead, not literally. He hasn't brought them back from the dead. He's done what? He's brought the bodies out of the graves. He's done the Lazarus come forth bit. But the Lazarus stayed dead but walked and moved. He didn't come back alive. But this rough magic, I hear abjure. Abjure. Swear it away. I will no longer practice it. Why? It's rough magic. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses, that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff. That is, after I get my last bit of spells, bury it certain fathoms in the earth. J.K. Rowling, the Elder Wand. And deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Now, from almost when this play was written, definitely from the 18th century onwards, awful lot of Shakespeare scholars have read those lines and said, that's Shakespeare. Why? This is Shakespeare's last self-authored play. He doesn't write anything else after this. I know, after the book, after this play, you get the Two Noble Kinsmen. Shakespeare didn't write the Two Noble Kinsmen by himself. Right? It's like Shakespeare says, that's it, I'm done, I got nothing more. Okay? So, he speaks to Alonso, he speaks to Gonzalo, he speaks to Antonio and Sebastian, he calls forth their clearer reason, etc. And then he says to Antonio, 75, you, brother mine, that entertained ambition, expelled remorse, and nature. How nature? You went against your own kind, your own kin. A little more than kin, but less than kind. Whom with Sebastian, whose inward pinches, therefore, are most strong, would here have killed your king. I do forgive thee, unnatural though thou art. Notice what he's forgiving him of. Is he solely forgiving Antonio and Sebastian for crimes against Prospero? No. He's forgiving them for also crimes against Alonso. Well, how can he do that? Whoever you forgive, Christ says, and then Paul brings this up, what? Will be forgiven. The things that are forgiven them don't have to be, in traditional Christian theology, against you. It'd be like Kathleen does something against Trevor. And I see it, and I could say, in traditional Christian theology, Lord, hold this not against Kathleen. Forgive her for what she's just done. Whether Trevor's sitting over there fuming and plotting his revenge. Okay? Their understanding begins to swell. In other words, the light, the dimmer switch in their mind is gradually turning up. And the approaching tide will shortly fill the reasonable shore that now lies foul and muddy. What's the reasonable shore? Their minds that are now foul and muddy. The tide is going to come in, and like with Gonzalo's clothes, they'll be washed clean. This is Prospero's absolution from sin. This is Prospero acting as priest to them. Not one of them that yet looks on me or would know me. They'll be white as snow. Okay? So, Gonzalo, 104. Some heavenly power guide us out of this fearful country. And Prospero says, hello, here. Behold, Sir King, the wronged Duke of Milan. Prospero. For more assurance that a living prince does now speak to thee, I embrace thy body. That is, you need proof that I'm not a ghost? He hugs him. It's kind of like, come on, Thomas, put your finger through my hand, put your hand in my side. I'm real. And to thee and thy company, yeah, you too, little brother, I bid hearty welcome. And they're like, what gives? You do yet taste some subtleties of the isle, 124, that will not let you believe things certain. What does he mean, believes things certain? Does he mean certainly believe things? No. He means believe things. What does certain mean? Absolute that are real. Like me being here. But you, my brace of lords, were I so minded, I here could pluck his highness's frown upon you and justify you traitors. Talking to Sebastian and Antonio. I could, if I wanted, have you killed. Sebastian, the devil speaks in him. In other words, not me, Lord. No. For you, speaking to his brother, whom to call brother would even infect my mouth, I do forgive the rankest fault. Is thy rankest fault his sin against Prospero? Which is worse? Taking your brother's position as rightful Duke of Milan, or plotting to kill your king? Yet plotting to kill your king is a little bit higher on the hierarchy of, evil political deeds. I forgive your rankest fault. All of them. Notice, he has more than one rankest faults. And require my dukedom of thee. Now, give me back my authority, which perforce I know thou must restore. Okay? So, Prospero mentions having lost his daughter. Alonso says, when? In this last tempest. I perceive these lords at this encounter, 155, do so much admire that they devour the reason, scarce think their eyes do offices of truth. Their words are natural breath. But howsoever you have been jostled from your senses, know for certain I am Prospero. In other words, he hasn't yet said everything that's happened to you, my work. That's going to come in just a moment. Okay? Miranda comes in. Notice, 173. Here, Prospero discovers Ferdinand and Miranda playing at chess. What does that mean, discovers?
They were concealed.
Exactly. They were there all along. And he just kind of goes, whoop, and they're playing chess. Miranda now turns around and she sees what? She sees her father. She sees Ferdinand because she's playing chess with him. And what else does she see? Antonio, Sebastian, Alonso, Francisco, Adrian. In other words, she sees a whole bunch of men that aren't her father and Ferdinand and Caliban. Oh, wonder. How many goodly creatures are there here? In other words, he's hot, he's hot, he's hot, well, it could be he's a man, he's a man, he's a man. How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Prospero, 'tis new to thee. Okay? But also, what kind of people is she now seeing? Think about this for a moment. What has Prospero just been saying? I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. They're cleansed. Alonzo, who's this? She's mortal. Notice, first thing out of his mouth, she is mortal. Because Alonzo says, is that a goddess? Okay. So, go to the very end, since we're out to the last minute. Now my charms, Prospero comes out for the epilogue. Let me back up. I'm going to go a couple minutes over. 298. Prospero commands Caliban, go to my cell, take with you your companions, Stefano and Trinculo. Okay? He says, as you look to have my pardon, trim it, that is my cell, decorate my cell handsomely. I that I will, and I'll be wise hereafter. Period. That's the end of sentence. And seek for grace. Caliban's redemption, he will seek for grace, and that will be wisdom. Notice, Caliban can change. Nurture can take effect. What a thrice double ass was I to take this drunkard for a god. This is Caliban's reformation. Now the epilogue. Now my charms are all o'erthrown, and with strength I have mine own, which is most faint. This is why a lot of people say, this is Shakespeare. He's saying, the well is dried up. Now 'tis true, I must be here confined by you, or sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my dukedom got, and pardon the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell, but release me from my bands with the help of your good hands. Gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails. What's the gentle breath? Bravo, bravo, more, encore, etc. Now I want, that is, I lack, spirits to enforce, art to enchant, and my ending is despair, unless I be relieved by prayer. I think there's a lot of credit to be said for Shakespeare saying, I'm going back to Stratford. I haven't lived with Anne for 20-some years. It's time. And that's all she wrote in the book. Okay. As I said, the sample exam